Jennifer couldn't help but marvel at Brian's upbeat return from his trip abroad, presenting souvenirs as if nothing was amiss.
It feels great to have finally done something nice for my mom,
he said, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing within her. How could he be so oblivious? I pondered, my patience wearing thin. Even though your mom passed away? I retorted, my voice laced with disbelief. Brian's confusion was palpable, his face a mix of shock and ignorance.
What?
He stammered, scrambling to grasp the gravity of the situation. I, a 33-year-old working professional, felt the weight of my dual responsibilities more than ever. Married to Brian, a 38-year-old corporate worker. Their 3-year union was a testament to resilience. Brian, for all his dedication at work, exhibited a domineering persona at home, expecting me to decipher his needs without so much as a hint.
You should know what I need without me having to say anything,
he'd often remark, taking my efforts for granted. His lack of gratitude was apparent, never once uttering a thank you for my unwavering support.
Can't you dress more modestly?
Brian's words cut through the air, his disdain for her choice of attire evident. But it's just my usual suit, I replied, taken aback.
I've always thought it. Now that we're married, there's no need to dress up so much,
he continued, his tone dismissive. I tried to reason, it's not that extravagant, but was met with a harsh rebuke.
Don't talk back, just listen to me,
Brian demanded, his authoritarian stance leaving no room for discussion. As the daily grind unfolded, from meticulous housekeeping debates to critiques on my wardrobe and even my personal effects, Brian's interference became a constant echo, revealing his craving for control. At first, I mistook his incessant guidance for concern, pondering, maybe he's just looking out for me? Yet, the barrage of criticism soon eroded my patience, and beneath my polite facade, a desperate wish for silence burgeoned. Brian's shadow mirrored that of his father, James, a man whose presence loomed large with traditional patriarchal values. It dawned on me that Brian, raised under the watchful eye of such a figure, had normalized this domineering demeanor. This realization did little to quell my frustrations, given my stark contrast to Margaret, the ever-doting matriarch. This divergence, undoubtedly, cast me as indifferent in Brian's eyes. Amidst aspirations of mirroring his parents' unspoken bond, a relationship steeped in mutual respect and shared history, I remained acutely aware of our distinct paths and the unique dynamics that colored our partnership. The plot thickened one evening as Brian waltzed in, his arms cradling an array of travel brochures, each depicting paradises like Maldives and Fiji Islands. Planning a getaway? I ventured, intrigued by this sudden display of wanderlust.
Yep, it's for Mom's 60th celebration. Thought a week abroad would be special,
he explained, his tone brimming with excitement. My heart sank at the mention of a week-long retreat, a luxury my bustling work schedule wouldn't permit. His next words, however, caught me off guard.
Actually, it's just going to be me and Mom. No need for you to worry about it.
This revelation stung more than expected, bringing back memories of James's 60th celebration, an occasion marked by joy and familial bonding. So a mother-son adventure, huh? And Dad's okay being left alone? I probed, masking my surprise. Brian's response came in a hurried flurry.
Dad, oh yeah, he'll manage. He's not one for fussing anyway.
This exchange, albeit brief, highlighted the underlying tensions and unspoken agreements that shaped our family dynamics. Brian's insistence on the trip being a non-issue for me was a bitter pill to swallow. Yet his dedication to fulfilling a long-held promise to Margaret revealed a layer of thoughtfulness. As Brian busied himself with the preparations, diving into the brochures with newfound zeal, I found myself reflecting on the essence of our family ties. The decision to exclude me from the trip, though initially painful, underscored the importance of fostering individual relationships within the familial unit. A month flew by, and Bali emerged as the chosen destination. Brian, taking the reins, meticulously organized the trip, a gesture that underscored his commitment to creating a memorable experience for Margaret. This venture, a testament to their bond, left me to ponder the complex tapestry of relationships and the distinct journeys each family undertakes. On a quiet evening, just as tranquility had begun to envelop me, my solitude was pierced by an unexpected call from James, Brian's father. Known for his stoic calmness, James's voice betrayed an urgency that was out of character, immediately setting off alarms in my mind.
Is Brian there?
He inquired, his tone laced with an effort to maintain composure. Confused, I responded, Brian, He should be with Margaret on their vacation in Bali, right? The sharpness in his voice as he retorted
What?
sent a chill down my spine. They left just this morning. I explained, my words hanging in a silence that seemed to grow heavier with each passing second. The conversation that followed was nothing short of a bombshell. James, struggling to hold back tears, revealed,
Margaret. She's passed away.
The words hit me like a freight train. Passed away? What do you mean? I managed to stammer, the reality of his statement refusing to take hold. James continued,
She had a heart attack this evening, and she didn't survive.
The revelation left a profound silence in its wake, punctuated only by the sound of James's grief-stricken sobs. Margaret had been more than just my mother-in-law in the years since I married Brian. She had become a second mother, enveloping me in warmth and kindness from the very beginning. The shock of her sudden departure was surreal, a stark contrast to the image of her embarking on a leisurely vacation that had been painted in my mind just that morning. But he mentioned they were headed to Bali. I found myself saying, clinging to a sliver of hope that there had been some mistake. Compelled by a need for clarity, I darted to Brian's office, where his computer held the answers. The flight details were stark against the screen. Brian's name paired not with Margaret, but with Samantha. The truth laid bare. Brian had crafted a web of lies, choosing to flee with another, without worrying his own mother's passing away at all. Relaying this discovery to James, I could sense his shock through the phone. I found the booking. Brian wasn't with Margaret. He went with someone named Samantha. I confessed, the weight of my words heavy in the air. Amidst the chaos of emotions, a better laugh threatened to escape me. Could this be an affair? The question hung between us, a painful acknowledgement of the reality we were now forced to confront. James's next words, laden with concern,
Jennifer, are you all right?
served as a lifeline back to sanity. His compassion, in the face of his own unimaginable loss, underscored the complex web of emotions and relationships that defined our family. It was a poignant reminder of the resilience of human connections, even in the darkest of times, and the unexpected ways in which we find solace and strength in each other amidst betrayal and grief. In the aftermath of uncovering Brian's deceit, I consciously shelved my feelings of betrayal, redirecting my focus toward the immediate, pragmatic concerns at hand. A direct flight to Bali spans approximately 7.5 hours. I remarked to myself, the gravity of the situation prompting me to consider the logistics of international travel amidst grief. Perhaps if I managed to contact Brian promptly, he could make it back in time, at least for the funeral if not the wake. I'll attempt to reach out to him. I resolved, albeit with a heavy heart. James's response to my suggestion, however, caught me entirely off guard, slicing through the fog of my thoughts with startling clarity.
There's no need for him to attend a funeral,
He stated flatly, an undercurrent of resolute finality in his voice that left me momentarily paralyzed. What? I managed to stammer, my mind struggling to bridge the gap between expectation and the reality of his words.
Margaret wouldn't want him there. No need to call him.
He elaborated, his voice tinged with a mix of sorrow and conviction. The silence that followed was fraught with tension, a testament to the complex web of emotions and loyalties entangling us. But we can't just. My protest was meek, drowned out by James's adamant refusal to involve Brian.
I've told you, it's okay. There's no need to contact him.
He reiterated, before providing the details of the wake and funeral and abruptly concluding the call. In the wake of our conversation, I found myself adrift in a sea of indecision. Despite my inner turmoil, I prepared to make my way to James's home, the question of whether to inform Brian of his mother's passing haunting me with every step. The notion of excluding him from the mourning process gnawed at me persistently. Margaret was, after all, his mother. Surely, no matter the circumstances, he deserved to know of her demise. Compelled by a sense of duty, I sought James's permission once more to relay the news to Brian, only to be met with the same unyielding response. As I continued to press the issue, hoping to navigate through the maze of grief and obligation, James finally relented, sharing his deeper sentiments on the matter. His revelations forced me to reconsider my stance. Margaret wouldn't want to see Brian like this. I concluded, ultimately choosing to respect James's wishes by not contacting Brian. A week later, Brian's return marked a jarring juxtaposition to the solemnity that had pervaded in his absence. He arrived home brimming with joy, a stark contrast to the somber mood that had settled over the household. oblivious to the undercurrents of grief and betrayal. He presented me with souvenirs, his narrative painting a picture of a filial pilgrimage blessed with his mother's happiness.
Sorry for being away for a week, but your support made it possible for me to give Mom a wonderful experience. She was truly delighted.
He boasted, unaware of the storm of emotions his words unleashed within me. Which mother were you making happy? Your mom passed away the night you left. I counted sharply, my voice a blend of ice and steel, refusing to entertain the facade of his narrative. Confusion clouded Brian's features as he processed my words.
What are you talking about? Mom was with me.
He began, only for me to cut him off with a harsh reality. The night you flew to Bali, your mom suffered a heart attack and passed away. I stated unequivocally, my words slicing through the air with precision. Brian's attempts to dismiss the truth as a distasteful joke only served to deepen my disdain. This confrontation laid bare the chasm between Brian's perceived reality and the painful truth of Margaret's untimely departure, marking a poignant, devastating chapter in our shared domestic saga. I absolutely refused to engage in such a heartless jest. I asserted, the weight of the past week heavy on my heart. A week ago, my dear mother-in-law embarked on her eternal journey to the heavens, leaving us in a state of profound sorrow.
Could it really be true? Has Mom truly left us?
The disbelief in his voice was palpable, a mix of confusion and emerging grief. Yes, regrettably, we've solemnly concluded both the wake and the funeral. It was a serene, heartfelt farewell. I explained, trying to maintain my composure despite the turmoil swirling within.
Why wasn't I informed earlier?
His voice rose in frustration, a testament to the shock and hurt that came from being left out of such critical family moments. After I laid bare the entire situation, I observed a color drain from my husband's face, turning him into a picture of shock and disbelief. It was as if the ground had shifted beneath him. Put yourself in my shoes for a moment. If our roles were reversed, would you have made it a point to inform me? Or perhaps you'd harbor thoughts of I'd rather keep her in the dark? I challenged, aiming to pierce through his facade of indifference.
I'd like to think I wouldn't resort to such actions.
He replied, his voice faltering, betraying a hint of uncertainty. Is that so? However, lingering on hypotheticals is futile at this juncture. What intrigues me more is discovering who accompanied you on a week-long escapade to Bali. I pressed on, seeking the truth behind the veil of secrecy he had draped over his actions. Faced with my direct questioning, his eyes widened in alarm before narrowing into a glare that was meant to intimidate. But I stood my ground, determined to uncover the truth.
Let's not deviate from the matter at hand. I am here seeking answers about my mother.
He attempted to redirect the conversation, a clear evasion tactic. It seems we're at an impasse regarding who is truly attempting to shift the conversation. I mused, not willing to let him off the hook so easily.
Why didn't you reach out to me immediately? One would think that the loss of one's mother isn't the ideal time for leisurely pursuits.
He argued, his voice laced with a mixture of anger and desperation. And who was it, pray tell, that claimed to be setting off on a trip with their mother? I counted, refusing to let him deflect from answering the critical questions.
That's irrelevant. My concern is why there was a lack of communication from you.
He persisted, clearly agitated by the direction of our conversation. How can you deem it irrelevant? Do you genuinely believe that your mother would have desired the attendance of someone who concocted a tale of travel and indulged in an affair at her own funeral? I questioned, challenging his moral compass and sense of familial duty.
That is...
He began faltering, the reality of his actions starting to dawn on him. Let's not pretend as if your deceitful jaunt overseas with another woman was an inconsequential affair. I continued, my tone firm, emphasizing the gravity of his betrayal.
This outcome was beyond my foresight.
He admitted, a hint of remorse creeping into his voice, though whether for his actions or their consequences was unclear. Indeed, had this unfortunate series of events not unfolded, I might still be ensnared by your web of lies. Yet, you chose to betray not just my trust, but also that of your own mother. I remarked, highlighting the extent of his duplicity. He started, struggling to find words that could possibly mend a chasm his actions had created. What now? Do you intend to layer more falsehoods atop the already teetering pile? Rest assured, the veil has been lifted. There's nothing left for you to hide. I declared, my resolve unshaken. The individual you've entangled yourself with is Samantha, your subordinate, correct? Rumors of you both exploiting your leave for an overseas adventure were rampant within the office, rendering my quest for the truth rather straightforward. I disclosed, leaving no room for denial. With a mixture of defiance and resolve, I slammed the divorce papers onto the table, confronting him with a decision that, though painful, was the only path left to me.
What is the meaning of this? To leave to divorce over a single lapse in judgment is utterly ludicrous.
He exclaimed, his tone a mix of disbelief and indignation. The authority to extend or withhold forgiveness lies solely with me. I stated unequivocally, my voice steady despite the emotional storm raging within.
To create such a commotion over a fleeting dalliance with a subordinate. It was nothing more than a trivial amusement.
He attempted. It doesn't matter if you're having fun with her or if you're serious. As long as you're married, it's still an affair.
You, get your act together, okay? Who do you think you should listen to like that?
Just as my husband was about to yell at me further, a voice much louder than his echoed in the living room.
Can't you see what you're doing?
James burst into the living room, fixing Brian with a stern glare as he positioned himself beside me.
Listening to you, one might think you're the aggrieved party, conveniently ignoring the reality of your actions.
Father, it's her fault for not informing me about Mom's passing.
Brian attempted to interject, seeking to deflect blame.
It was I who advised Jennifer against notifying a person like you.
James interjected, cutting off any attempt at self-justification from Brian.
Why would you do that? Am I not the eldest son, the only son?
Brian's voice was a mix of incredulity and entitlement, struggling to grasp the reasoning behind his exclusion.
So think, the eldest son, using his mother as an excuse for an affair, disgusts me to my core.
James retorted, his voice heavy with contempt and disappointment.
That's unbelievable.
Brian stammered, taken aback by the severity of his father's judgment.
The reason you were barred from the funeral is that you made the same mistake as your grandfather. Your mother's biological father abandoned his family, claiming to have found true love, leaving behind nothing but hardship and suffering.
James disclosed, unveiling a painful family history Brian was apparently unaware of.
I had no idea. This is the first I've heard of such a thing.
Brian confessed, his confusion and shock evident.
Why would I bring up such a painful chapter of her history? Your justification of finding true love or dismissing it as just fun makes you no different from him. Your mother deserved better than to have her final moments sullied by your presence.
James continued, each word emphasizing the gravity of Brian's actions. Frozen, Brian absorbed the weight of his father's words, a mix of shame and realization dawning on him.
Maybe it was a blessing for your mother to leave this world without witnessing what her son had become. I couldn't let someone so morally bankrupt near her. That's the real reason you were kept away from the funeral.
James stated, his tone unyielding, reflecting a painful decision made out of love and respect for his wife.
But I loved Mom.
Brian's voice was barely above a whisper, a feeble attempt to assert his familial affection.
What you should cherish is Jennifer, right here. Being headstrong and selfish does not a family man make.
James corrected him sharply, delineating the true responsibilities of a husband and father.
A true husband's duty is to ensure the well-being and happiness of his wife and children, a qualification you sorely lack.
James concluded, leaving no room for argument.
I don't want this. I don't want a divorce.
Brian pleaded, his voice laced with desperation.
Quiet. Jennifer tried to persuade me to inform you about your mother till the very end.
James revealed, shedding light on the complexity of their family dynamics.
You've easily betrayed Jennifer's trust. Now, without further ado, sign the divorce papers.
At those words, Brian collapsed into tears, overwhelmed by the magnitude of his actions and their irreversible consequences. The tears shed in those moments left me wondering if they stemmed from the sorrow of losing my mother-in-law or from some other deep-seated regret. To this day, I remain unsure if the actions taken by James and myself, believed to be in Margaret's best interest, were truly the correct ones. Yet, at that moment, it felt as though we were fulfilling her silent wishes. With James's encouragement, I pursued and received alimony from Brian and his mistress, leading to the finalization of our divorce. Brian was thereafter branded in the workplace as the man too preoccupied with his affair to notice his own mother's passing. But he couldn't afford to leave his job due to the financial strain of the alimony payments. He lived as if walking on eggshells, his reputation tarnished. It appeared Brian had envisioned a future with Samantha, but she regarded him merely as a casual partner, never contemplating marriage. Their relationship crumbled under the pressure of the financial obligations towards me, culminating in a heated argument and their eventual separation. James, on the other hand, severed his ties with Brian, choosing to live a life dedicated to mourning and honoring Margaret's memory. He repeatedly expressed his apologies for his son's transgressions, though I harbored no resentment towards him. I was deeply appreciative of both my in-laws, who had always provided me with a sense of belonging while maintaining a respectful distance. Post-divorce, I continued to visit my former in-laws' home on the anniversary of Margaret's passing to pay my respects. My relationship with James, initially marked by silence and discomfort, gradually evolved into one of mutual understanding and shared reminiscences about Margaret. These visits became a cherished ritual, offering me a sense of connection and continuity with the past.